This is going to be one of those videos. My webcam is still broken, so I'm going to say all of this through audio, through displayed evidence, and through other people's videos to make my point. And I'm going to be talking about this article. It appeared on PopMatters, and it's called "What's Really Scary About the New Ghostbusters," with the tagline, "I ain't afraid of no bros." I instantly knew it was going to be one of those stupid articles about the hate for the new Ghostbusters trailer being misogyny. So I dove right in. Let's start off simple. Back in 1984, when Ghostbusters was first released into theaters, the film's longevity couldn't have been predicted. Some of the film's reviewers were outright scathing, dismissing it as misjudged parody, a bore, or a comprehensive waste of Bill Murray's considerable talents. Okay, stop. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, well, back then the critical response was bad too, but the movie had already come out. And that was critics, not the audience. The vast number of normal people watching the trailer are doing the ones criticizing here, not the critics. And though there are some critics who are very much against the trailer because they feel it... Well, I'll get into that later, but let's keep going. 30 years later from the moment of its first announcement, the Ghostbusters reboot, due to release on July 15th, has been similarly subjected to criticism, but the tenor, targets, and intensity of that scorn, all for an as-yet unseen project, have revealed both some troubling and ironically resonant truths about a vocal segment of the Ghostbusters fanbase, and in a way which may have missed the meaning of the very films it professes to love. Angry fans are striving to protect a legacy that cannot be harmed based on material they haven't seen, from an offense that isn't happening, and the irony is that they are proving exactly why a female Ghostbusters isn't just a necessity, it's inspired. Okay, here's the thing. It's not about the women. I'm going to repeat that. It's not about the women. The angry video game nerd pointed this out in his own video on the subject. Angry Joe pointed this out on his video on the subject.
What the hell? No, Joe's not here to center me. No, what the fuck? You were shitting. Okay, I didn't have a problem with the all-female cast. That's not the issue here. The issue here is that you're treating Ghostbusters in such a low rent, like borrowing this license as a layer of dressing so that you can have one of those generic comedies, these Melissa comedies. I don't want this to be real.
Exactly. It's not about the women. It's about the fact that you're using the Ghostbusters license as a way to sell sort of basically modern talky comedy. That's the issue. It doesn't come off like a real Ghostbusters. It comes off like a bad comedy with a faint layer of Ghostbusters smeared onto it, which is frankly kinda disrespectful because fans have been yearning for a new Ghostbusters film for quite some time now. But let's move on to the rest of the article. Maybe this guy can pull out some good points. Let's take a look. Over the past several months, literally beginning the moment the film was announced, running right through casting, pre-production, filming, post-production, and all the way up to the premiere, the Ghostbusters reboot has been the focus of an unrelenting torrent of hate. The film's stars were attacked through social media. Leslie Jones was relentlessly trolled on Twitter. Some fans were so psychologically unhinged they even spewed vitriol at the stars for daring to visit a children's hospital in costume. Okay, that's just sick. Its teaser became the most downvoted trailer in YouTube history thanks to an organized online campaign. Okay, stop right there. Organized online campaign. It's not a grand conspiracy. People on the internet just don't like it. Okay? It's really not a conspiracy. And it goes on to say, every bit of advertising and information from the set has been met with ridicule and rage, who believe that the film will either ruin their childhood, or loudly claim to anyone they can, nonstop, that they don't care about it for real, you guys. Okay, back to the whole organized campaign. Trust me, I will circle back to this, I promise you, but I'm gonna keep going. The disproportionate backlash rose to farcical levels over the past few weeks when even the original creator of the series, Dan Aykroyd, was attacked for expressing enthusiasm about the project, and critics found a new hero in the form of a man calling himself the angry video game nerd, who considered it newsworthy to declare to the interwebs that he was going to renounce his thoroughly made up and non-binding mandate of pop culture reviewer and avoid seeing the film. In the video, which was met with rousing support from many of his viewers, the AVGN declared himself offended by the upcoming release, dismissed it as a travesty, and described it as a blight on the otherwise pristine Ghostbusters legacy. Presumably, he has not seen Ghostbusters 2. Okay, right here, I can tell the guy clearly hasn't watched any of the Angry Video Game Nerd's videos, because James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, has said he's seen Ghostbusters 2, and he actually kinda likes it, and he doesn't think it's that bad. As with other recent online controversies like Gamergate, a vile, false flag operation claiming to be about ethics in gaming that was co-opted to terrify women out of the gaming industry with rape threats and slut-shaming, it's difficult to avoid noting a distinctly misogynistic text. Perhaps that should just read text. At work in response to director Paul Feig's all-female reboot. But despite all the evidence that a fear of women drives much of this backlash, commentaries like the ones offered by the Angry Video Game Nerd to offer several other reasons for alarm only reveal, albeit unintentionally, the more pathetic, counterintuitive insecurities at work behind the outrage. As the AVGN's video exhibits, the first and most frequently cited reason for critics to hate on the film is that, in their opinion, it doesn't look very amusing. Forget that it has 4 of the funniest actors on the planet playing titular roles. Okay, stop. Stop. They're going to use that whole, these actresses are funny, or the director has done funny stuff. First of all, comedy is subjective. Plenty of people think Adam Sandler is still funny, and other people think he's not. Plenty of people think Michael Bay films are good, and a lot of other people think they're not. So why are the fans' opinions on what is funny and what isn't any less valid than yours, for starters? 2, just because an actor or an actress has done funny work before, it doesn't mean they'll be funny in this. Not to mention, a lot of the actresses, their work is hit or miss. Let's take Melissa McCarthy. Her recent film, The Boss, was not that good. Tammy was pretty much an absolute train wreck. So, you know what? They have done bad films before. Just because an actress or an actor has been funny before, it doesn't mean they're always going to be funny. Same with a director. Okay? So, let's move on. The most evidence such naysayers offer is the trailer. It was terrible, they will squawk. And yes, the initial trailer was hardly fantastic. The reference to the original 4 Ghostbusters in a film built on the conceit they didn't even exist sent some weird mixed messages. Thank you for addressing a huge problem we have, that they're banking on the Ghostbusters nostalgia whilst saying the previous Ghostbusters didn't exist. But it's one line. That's all you put into it. Moving right along. But it was by no rational definition the worst of all time, as the dogpiling campaign of voting on YouTube would pretend. It tried to strike a playful tone. It failed. Threw some goofy floral ghosts into the mix. The original film was pretty gritty, and it actually had some seriously good practical effects, like the ghosts in the library, and the Zool monsters, and things like that. Remixed the original film theme in an effort to sound re-energized. but it didn't really have any jokes to it. Just, you know, imitating a mannequin, licking the guns, and the power of penny compels you. There wasn't a single part in the trailer that personally made me laugh, and I'm not the only, and I was going into it blind. I haven't seen the Ghostbusters film since the 90s. So I'm someone who, the original Ghostbusters I really, really liked. Ghostbusters 2 I thought was pretty good. But I had never seen the Ghostbusters, the original film, in years. I'm the kind of ideal fan that they would want. Someone who saw the original a long ways away and would like to see more Ghostbusters stuff. And if I didn't find it that funny at all, and I'm a pretty liberal guy, if I didn't find it that funny, yeah. And you know what? Angry Joe didn't find it that funny either, and a lot of people call him a social justice warrior, and he was perfectly fine with an all-female cast, and he's a huge Ghostbusters fan to boot. So if we didn't find it that funny, then a lot of people on the street are not going to find it that funny either. Perhaps it was lackluster, but pretending that a single commercial is any kind of reliable window into the quality of a film's final product is willfully obtuse. Some of the best films of all time have had terrible trailers, and even the worst films can be made to look majestic. Yes, but the opposite also applies, because a lot of trailers often can reveal how good a movie will be. And even bad films have at least one funny moment. Like, for example, A Million Ways to Die in the West does have, in fact, a funny moment where Seth MacFarlane's character stumbles across Doc Brown. That was funny to me. It made me think of Back to the Future. That made me smile. It was a funny sequence, but there isn't anything like that for the current Ghostbusters trailer. So, the fact is that with a trailer, you're supposed to put your best foot forward. And not even the international trailer was that funny, and even the newest trailer is not that good. It's a meh thing. It's a meh. There's only one joke that really made me laugh, and that was the selfie stick. That got a chuckle out of me. That was kind of funny. But that's it. Just the selfie stick joke. That's it. Moving right along. Given that there's no actual finished film to judge, those eager to be outraged will attempt to argue that the idea of rebooting the story itself is offensive. As the angry video game nerd awkwardly attempts to claim, doing a remake that will devalue or belittle the original. It's writing it out of existence. But it's patently absurd. No, it's not, because the remake is pretending the original film didn't exist. And the fans really wanted a kind of passing of the torch film. For all of the angry video game nerds hand-wringing about someone making a Ghostbusters in the future, they should... and how they might have to take a literal half-second to clarify whether they mean the 2016 version or the original work of 1984, nothing will have changed. The first film will always stand untarnished. Okay, that isn't exactly true, because plenty of people say that the Star Wars prequels really hurt their ability to enjoy the original Star Wars trilogy. Plenty of people said that Avatar: The Last Airbender, its film adaptation, really hurt their ability to enjoy the cartoon. I myself, for Batman vs. Superman, I can't look at the comics I knew and loved anymore without thinking about film adaptations of them, and now I'm saddened by the knowledge that my children are going to grow up knowing a Superman that kills. It does have an effect. It does have an impact on what came before. It's as true in real life as it is in pop culture. Even Dick Cheney himself said, "A president leads a military built by those who came before." And the same can apply to popular culture and movies. Movies, remakes, reboots, sequels would not exist if not for what came before. They build upon what came before, which is why it's so important that you have to get it right. It's hard to take this indignation seriously when you realize that the angry video game nerd and those who share his opinion have never bothered to voice similar moral objections when RoboCop was being remade, or Total Recall, or Ocean's 11, or True Grit, Point Break, or Godzilla. Everyone seemed fine when Batman Begins retold Batman's origin story, and Man of Steel Superman's, say when Spider-Man was reintroduced to the world twice within the span of 4 years. Yet somehow, miraculously, it's only this film that's motivated fans to revolt in the name of film posterity. Stop! Right there! I knew you were going to do that. And by the way, he adds, there was also the time Starbuck was recast as a woman in the Battlestar Galactica television remake. Gee, I wonder why that one stirred similar blowback. Okay, stop right there. Now I've got you. Let's take a little look at a couple other trailers. Well, looky here. It's the sequel for A Christmas Story 2. The official sequel. A film that everybody thinks is a classic. And oh, look at all those dislikes. Ooh, that's not good. Now, I wonder why that is. Why is it disliked so much? But, you want more proof? Tell you what, let's look at Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Oh my god, it's got even more views. And look at all those dislikes. It can't be because that the fans feel that the material is being disrespectful and poorly treated, and they don't want the series or these products to go in that direction. That can't possibly be the reason why they're objecting now, can it? Oh wait. Yes, it fucking can! It has nothing to do with women. It's because fans very much want things their way. It's because when people get heavily invested in something, very much so, they look at something almost like their child, and they have the same kind of reaction to it as a mother has to a child, to someone approaching their child. Don't touch. If you touch it, I will destroy you. And because these things are a huge part of either their childhood or their current livelihood, if it brings them a lot of joy, they want people to do it right. If something comes off as just a lame, boring, rotten remake, like the Fantastic Four remake, fans will very much object to that as well. And by the way, fans did object to the Fantastic Four remake. They kept insisting, no, we don't want Sony to do it. We want Marvel to have back its first family. How quickly you ignore that. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Wait a minute. What's this? The angry video game nerd is sitting beside a display of Star Trek V paraphernalia, so his ability to judge what constitutes damaging additions to a storied franchise might be, to be put it politely, suspect. Okay. Ugh. This guy's really angering me. But let's keep going. The angry video game nerd's description of what he believes the film should have been, and what he and fans like him apparently deserve to see, is that Ghostbusters 3, a passing of the torch narrative in which the original team of Ghostbusters are present to train the new recruits. That, he argues, is what the fans want. Yes, and it's what had been worked on for many, many years, and even people like Dan Aykroyd had talked about it on late-night talk shows and things like that, and it's what the director Ivan Reichman wanted. That's what he wanted. And they made that, Ghostbusters 3, into a video game, essentially. Dan Aykroyd has said that that's pretty much the script for the Ghostbusters video game is pretty much what Ghostbusters 3 kind of would have been like. So yeah, the director of the original Ghostbusters, the guy who wrote the thing, the guy who's responsible for it, he wanted a kind of passing of the torch film. By the way, but the author does not bother to bring this up in his article. So why does the author think a passing of the torch wouldn't work? It would be a convincing argument if there was any evidence of such a thing being feasible or having a chance at success. evidently he didn't bother to look up the behind-the-scenes production of Ghostbusters 3. What's the argument he uses for why it wouldn't work? Cinematic history has shown that audiences love seeing their heroes aged beyond usefulness, merely a shadow of their former glory, getting sidelined by the origin story of their replacements, right? You can cite J.J. Abrams' Star Trek all you want, but the reality is more often Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Terminator Genesis, and the Police Academy series. Okay, once again, stop. Because I'm gonna bring up a few other films you have overlooked besides J.J. Abrams' Star Trek series. And I know that's divisive to an extent, but I actually like it quite a bit. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Most people really, really liked that film, and it's a passing of the torch film. What about that? Huh? What about that? What about Star Trek Generations? There's a lot of problems that film has, but a lot of people also really like that film, and I happen to like it quite a bit myself, despite all its flaws. What about Ghostbusters 3? It too is a kind of... The Ghostbusters series is a passing of the torch from Tommy Jones to Will Smith. Not to mention, they replaced Rip Torn with a woman in the third film, and most people liked the third film a lot better than the second sequel, so there you could point to that as a kind of passing of the torch style film, with it continuing the story but adding in new people to continue said story. Heck, what about the movie Creed? Creed was a passing of the torch film because it goes from Rocky to the son of Apollo Creed. That was a good film. A lot of people liked it. It was a critical darling. Hello? It can be done. But oh, the author has what he thinks is an ace up his sleeve. The clearest proof of this monkey's paw wish curse for sequels is exhibited in another of Dan Aykroyd's beloved adventure comedy franchises, Blues Brothers 2000. A film the angry video game nerd seems to have conveniently erased from his recollection. It delivered precisely what he claims to want in a fantasized Ghostbusters 3, a return of the original living cast members. Written by the original creator. A handing off of the franchise to a new generation. Yeah, here's the problem. One, it didn't actually do those things very well. And two, there are huge problems with Ghostbusters 2000, and I'm going to let Doug Walker explain this. Actually, no, not Doug Walker, Rob Walker. Here.
Was this a fan request or something?
No, that's the great thing about it. Nobody wanted to see it, and now it's here for everybody to witness.
Critic, how can anyone enjoy a recreation that only has half of what made it good? Forceful comedic sidekicks, practically nothing new to offer, and wasn't something that the fan base ever demanded in the first place to begin with.
I think they get the idea.
All right.
Blues Brothers 2000.
So, yeah, it wasn't, unlike Ghostbusters, Blues Brothers 2000 wasn't something the fan base ever requested to begin with. It had forced-in comedic sidekicks. It only had half of what made it good. So, their entire point is predicated on the idea, on these false foundations. And even the article seems to almost dive into it by saying that it becomes such a redundant act of creative necromancy, literal necromancy by the end, there are actual goddamn zombies in that film, that it does nothing but debase the memory of the original. So you just admitted in your own article that a sequel can, in fact, debase the memory of your original film. That it can, in fact, hurt the original film by its very existence. A sequel can do that if it's genuinely that bad. You just torpedoed one of your own arguments. But let's keep going. He says, Harold Ramis, co-creator and writer of the original films, died in 2014, something difficult to write around in a playful comedy romp. Then there's Bill Murray, who played Peter Venkman, and he's made it abundantly clear that he's apathetic at best about the original Ghostbusters franchise. And he described Ghostbusters 3 as his nightmare, and has consistently expressed regret about even agreeing to Ghostbusters 2. Okay, for starters, they're not the only two guys that were interested in it. Again, the director and Dan Aykroyd, who were much bigger roles than Bill Murray was, they very much wanted to make the film, okay? But let's keep going. In contrast to this kind of hackneyed, unwilling participation, the makers of the reboot have actually managed to entice Murray, alongside Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Sigourney Weaver, to appear in cameos. They even all appeared in person with the new cast on Jimmy Kimmel. For Pete's sakes. You know, there was actually pretty much proof that Sony had drawn up litigation against some of the cast members to try and coerce them into being in cameos. It has nothing to do with enticing, it's coercion. They had lawsuits against these people, at least against Murray, that I know. But it gets worse. At this point, it becomes clear that the fans have little interest in protecting the integrity of the original film. Even the film's co-creators have become chum for their rhetoric, with Dan Aykroyd being chastised and insulted for professing his enthusiasm about the new movie. And Harold Ramis' death was revoltingly belittled by the angry video game nerd at the most infantile moment of his diatribe, when he declared, "At least he didn't have to see this shit." And you're not... You know what? I don't approve of people viciously attacking other people for expressing their opinion, but you're pretty much doing the same exact thing to James Rolfe. Gathered together, there really is no logic to this fabricated list of complaints. Yeah, actually there is. I gave a very reasonable reasons for these complaints to have. Clearly, this is not actually about the film, its creators, or its reputation. What truly bothers them is not the past, but the future. It's that a piece of pop culture entertainment based on something they like might no longer be tailored exclusively to their tastes. A film once spoke to these people on an intimate level, but now they're adamant that such an opportunity to share the work should not be extended to any new viewers, who perhaps won't find Dan Aykroyd getting a blowjob from a ghost as hilarious as they did. No, it's because the fans feel that it isn't funny, that it's just exploiting nostalgia and taking advantage of it to sell a crappy comedy, that it's not what they've been waiting for so long. And by the way, Sony completely pushed Ivan Reitman, the original creator of the Ghostbusters, to the side and froze him out in favor of Paul Feig. Thanks for that, Amy Pascal. Thanks a lot. And you know what else they're mad about?
A number of YouTube commenters have on Reddit and other forums report that Sony heavily moderates the comment sections of the trailers on their official channels. Many seem to experience that Sony deletes comments with legitimate grievances about the content, especially complaints posted by female users, but leave any and all comments with a racist or sexist slant intact. Could this be a sign that Sony is trying to create the impression that all backlash against the movie is due to sexism and racism, not unlike what Fox did with Fant Four Stick last year?
I am not kidding you. Sony actually began deleting comments off of the YouTube page. I actually looked these up. There were also a gallery of these on Imager.com, but that page has mysteriously disappeared. Gee, can't imagine why. This is pretty much the same kind of thing that Sony did for Fant Four Stick. But people weren't mad at that film because of Michael B. Jordan. They were mad because the film looked terrible, because it wasn't what the fans wanted, and because they didn't think that the director was a good choice for it. And look how well that turned out. It was a critical flop and a commercial failure. But again, The author of the article says, "It's so selfish and it's entitled, and it's no better symbolized than an angry video game nerd." For the love of God. And that the whole issue is about the issue of gender, because it clearly all of this shows how a large contingent of the fans are pissed off at the sight of female Ghostbusters. Again, the Rogue One trailer that came out, it's not got that many dislikes, and it's starring a female protagonist. Star Wars The Force Awakens was a passing of the torch film, and it had a huge emphasis on a female protagonist. She's pretty much the main heroine of the film, and everybody loves that, so no, it's not about the women. Jeez. The great irony of the backlash the film has received only confirms the premise of the films all the more. How justified the creators of this new version were in using women to portray these new characters. No, that's not the problem. The problem is that you're peeing all over what made the first good, that you're just using it in an exploitative way to push a lame comedy, and you're not listening to any fan criticism at all, just dismissing them all as haters and assholes. 30 years ago, Ghostbusters arrived in theaters and was dismissed by some critics as hollow, worthless, half-baked, unfunny schlock. The saddest irony is the newest iteration of the film fails to recognize the way in which they've now become the backward, cynical naysayers cheering on the failure of their protagonists. It will be a delight to see this film capture, both in narrative and spirit, for a whole new generation of viewers, the unique charm of its predecessor's conceit. Not in spite of, but because of those viewers whose prejudice has blinded them to welcoming the new. So let me see if I've got this right. Your final point is circling back to one of your earlier ones, that the critics back in 1984 didn't like it. Yes, they did. It's got a 97% certified fresh from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes based on 67 reviews of the film that were all collected over the years, including right out of 1984. Roger Ebert gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4. Newsweek's magazine said everybody loved it. It's wonderful summer nonsense. And Richard Schickel of Time praised the actors of the film. It was a critical success. It was a huge hit with audiences. It was a commercial success. Everybody seemed to love it, as did the average everyday man on the street. But nobody is rushing to really defend this current Ghostbusters. Even your very last point, which circles back to one of your very first points, falls apart. I'm sorry, sir, but you're wrong about this. As someone who hadn't seen the original Ghostbusters in over a decade, someone who is looking forward to more, and someone who is quite liberal-minded, I was looking forward to this. But the more I see, and the more the backlash against the backlash grows, the more I feel this is gonna suck. Now, this is all just my opinion, okay? You're welcome to have your own. You can disagree with me. I don't mind. Go wild in the comments. Express your opinion. It's just my own thoughts. That's all I'm saying.